Okay, thank you. Simon Fowle.
Thank you, Chair. Just to actually pick up from Mr. Holloway's point, I think you spoke about 40 secondary cases.
14, yeah.
Which is a staggeringly low number from the primary cases you've got. And I'm just wondering what drives that drop-off in your mind. So is it that people aren't coming forward? Is it that you're not seeing that secondary crime that means you're not necessarily picking it up? Is it that people just are going home and then there isn't the evidence base to do anything with?
I think it's a mixture of all of it, if I'm very honest. So the first bit is clearly some will see being the victim of the secondary offence as a victim more serious than the original, and actually it will confirm something is more likely to happen. I think you can be given evidence. We get evidence in terms of, I don't know if something's happened to me or not. I'm not certain if I've been spiked or not spiked. So it gives that dilemma for the victim of, I'm not certain, so therefore I'm not going to report it. I think in terms of the secondary offences, clearly you're looking at, and again, spiking is a serious offence, but when you're looking at other serious sexual offences, clearly our response, because we've got well-established protocols around the sexual offensive referral centres, everything else, there's a protocols that would kick into place where, again, like we are doing for the needle spiking now, where extra investigation capacity is put in terms of support for the victim. So the SARC's a really good example. They'll be referred to the SARC, samples will be taken to the SARC, ongoing support for that individual, obviously looking to make sure they're not just supported there and then, but through then the ongoing investigations as well. So we'll actually probably find there's an extra layer of investigation because of the secondary offences that won't necessarily be there for that first offence. The point for me goes back to, again, without trying to self back to it, but it is so important, even if it's through third party, that these get reported, because actually it helps us build that picture to do what we're primarily trying to do, is catch the offender. So as the Commissioner touched on earlier on, the fact is it's been at the same location on a number of occasions. That provides us an investigation opportunity to do some work with the industry in the location, without going into the details of that now, but to do some work to say is, where's the commonality then of what may have been happening in that location at that time, and these events as well. So the bit around it for me, in terms of the question, is it's a mixture of all that, and the reality is because of the secondary offences and the protocols that already exist and are well established, that provides an extra layer of support and ultimately hopefully confidence for the victim as well. We need to get that into spiking, so we'll talk a little bit about the A&E piece and everything else we can do around that.
Thank you. And if I can just build on that for a second before coming on to the main point. I'm interested in understanding how organised this is. So we've heard from previous witnesses in other sessions around a lack of awareness for spiking of drinks or physical spiking, reaching certain age groups, reaching certain demographics, and perhaps not being a problem in middle-class wine bars, but being more of a clubbing thing. And we're seeing some of those prejudices being broken down through this. But as a result of, I think, the lack of reporting and the lack of follow-up through prosecution, we've got a gap in our intelligence. I'm just trying to understand from your perspective, how much of this you think is organised and is being driven by a controlling mind of some kind, and how much of it is random activity?
Again, we don't know exact detail of the levels. As I said before, motive-wise, it could be the extremes. Clearly, for anybody to commit the offence, there's got to be some organisation, if it's individually or collective with other people, because the reality is they're going to have some sort, whether it be other alcohol that may be put into other alcohol, all the way through to other illicit substances that could be utilised in terms of drink spiking, all the way through to the needle spiking, where clearly they've got to go with a means to deliver that effect as well. The issue for us again goes back to, we are trawling to see, is there any connection across the country or regionally or locally in terms of these offences. That work doesn't just link into toxicology, because we may see the connectivity with toxicology, but all the way through to online presence, both dark and an open source as well. And again, without going into detail now, at the minute, there's nothing saying we are seeing a national coordinated activity, but clearly we need to keep an open mind around that, and that's an ongoing conversation we have with the National Crime Agency. And importantly, recognising social media doesn't just exist in the UK, there's an international flavour to this, and is there anything else happening outside the UK that can influence individuals in the UK to commit the offences as well.
Thank you. And Ms Allen, you look like you were chomping at the bit to get in on that.
I think it just takes me back to that early point. Sometimes the victims don't know who the perpetrator is. So there's one of these crimes that happen and it seems to be an invisible, somebody's doing this. And it takes me back to the point that I made earlier, that we want the people who know the perpetrators, who know that this is going on, to tell us who it is and why they're doing it, and some of the motivations, because we are in a bit of in the dark there. We understand what's happening. We need a lot more because we need more people coming forward to report, to give you the information about the perpetrator, about the motivations, and really how we can prevent this occurring in the first place.
Thank you.
Chair, I could also add some information which might put this into context. For the secondary offences, the vast majority are sexual secondary offences. When forensic toxicology analysis is undertaken, the vast majority of samples detect alcohol in the victim, not drug. It's probably around less than 10% of actual samples tested actually detect an additional drug. So drug spiking in terms of the needle spiking, I'm going to say is that my assessment would be it is a similar level. It's no more than 10%.
Thank you. That's helpful. And actually, it takes me neatly onto the next part, which is I think you've all spoken about sort of coordination and trying to drive best practice. I'm really keen because we're lucky with our witnesses. You all represent different parts of the establishment who will be responding to this. I'm just keen to understand what coordination is going on to make sure that best practice is being shared, and also you take your views on whether you think a national strategy for this is what's required to really crystallise what is good here and what needs to be done going forwards. If I just take you in order, so Ms Allen.
I think PCCs are ideally placed to convene meetings from a partnership perspective, as we did in Durham, and bringing those people round that table to understand it. We've talked about the nighttime economy and leading at the nighttime economy. In West Mercia, they spent £9,000 supporting the training of bar staff and people who work in there, but also in the prevention of the devices like the spikies to stop people being spiked. But it's very much local solutions to local problems. So if you are a university, Tam, you'd have your university drug and alcohol services, the people, if you've got the nighttime, the pastors and things like that, as well as your local authority and the police, students' union, universities. So you have the right people who can engage, and that's the best way to do it. So you're absolutely right. If you get good practice, it comes from a partnership approach, and that's where I think commissioners, with the support that we've got, small pockets, and I think this has been mentioned in previous sessions as well, of the safer streets of violence against women and girls, but we need more of that in relation to provide more preventative services, more awareness raising, and bringing people around the table. So it's not just about money, it's about how we can influence and get that information out to do the prevention side, raise awareness, but also to encourage reporting.
And Ms Ray.
Okay, so I've worked with all police forces to develop a national forensic strategy on how to deal with this issue. Very much focused, priority is the welfare of the victim. That's the key number one priority. But then the secondary is the forensic opportunities that can arise, and usually that means a prompt forensic sample of urine is taken. Policing has early evidence kits which are readily available, and as long as a urine sample is taken as quickly as possible, bearing in mind the priority is the welfare of the victim, there's forensic opportunities to actually determine whether or not a drug has been used.
Thank you.
And certainly from a national perspective, so, and again, I've done it in our written submission to yourself, when we saw the emergence of the needle spiking particularly, obviously we triggered what is ultimately called a GOAL group, National Coordinating Group, with all law enforcement. That includes all law enforcement internationally and nationally, along with Dean, other key stakeholders from other areas of business, including the Home Office and APCC, to say, in terms of a law enforcement element, a minute, what are we doing, what do we need to do? That then links into a national tactical working group, so all forces link into us on a bi-weekly call. So again, just to share practice, what we're doing around investigations, seeing if there's any opportunity to connect, opportunity for them to see if there's anything else nationally that we can help locally. What we certainly need to do, it links into the Commissioner's point around, the Commissioners have a great opportunity to hold the community safety partnerships to account of what they're doing around this. already is established, it should be ones that are picking up some of these issues. In terms of longer term strategy, there clearly needs to be. We don't want to deal with this in isolation, though. For me, it certainly, you look at the profile of the victims, it does link into the work we're doing around women and girls. I know my colleague Maggie Blythe, that you probably heard from, will hear from in the coming weeks and months, is we're already working with her to say is how do we link this into the framework for that work as well? Because the reality is it is very much predominantly women and girls that are the victim of these horrific offences.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stuart MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair.